Will the Senate come to order? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Aquino. Senator Awa.
Here.
Senator Chang. Senator DeCoit.
Here.
Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Elefante.
Here.
Senator Fukunaga.
Excused.
Senator Favela.
Here.
Senator Gabbard. Senator Ihara.
Present.
Senator Inoue.
Present.
Senator Kanuha. Senator Keith Agaran. Senator Keoho Kalole. Senator Kidani.
Aloha.
Senator Kim. Senator Lee. Senator McKelvey.
Aye.
Senator Moriwaki.
Present.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Richards. Senator San Buenaventura.
Excused.
Senator Shimabukuro. Senator Wakai. Mr. President.
Present.
23 present, 2 excused.
Thank you. The chair has read the journal of the preceding day and approves the same. Are there any introductions this morning? Senator Keith Agaran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over 15 years ago, Focus Maui Nui joined with Decisions Maui to create Ka'ipukukui, a program to train young leaders on Maui. Today we have the 17th cohort joining us in the gallery, and I'd like to introduce them to you. If you could hold your applause while I read off their names. First, Allison Cleghorn, if you could stand up, please, as I call out your name. From the County of Maui. Courtney Kawa from Big Brothers Big Sisters Hawaii. Jason Strawn from Maui Printing Company. Jason Watts from Mahipono. Kanoi Lani Davis from Pomahina Designs. Lauren Nelson from Hawaii Public Health Institute. Lauren Matsushita from Maui Health. Lynn McEwen from Pro Arts, Inc. Patty Ann Copperfield from Maui Economic Opportunity, Inc. Roanne Villoria from the Department of Health. Serena Fukushima from the Maui Invasive Species Committee. Stephen Bennett from Trilogy Excursions. Stephen Baptiste from Humboldt Tours. Ted Anderson from Venture Physical Therapy. Theo Stiller from Westpac Wealth Partners. And with them is the executive consultant for Ka'ipukukui, Sharon Kepler. Let's welcome the 17th cohort to the Senate.
I know you've already done it, Madam Clerk, but I'll read it into the record. Please note the presence of Senator Fukunaga as on the floor and present for session. Further introduction, Senator Shimabukuro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to introduce some special guests we have from the Waianae Coast. If you can hold your applause, I see Patty Kanamuku Taruya, Hawaiian Homes Commissioner, please stand. Jermaine Myers, Nanakuli Homestead Lessee, and any others from the Waianae Coast. Sorry for my nearsightedness. Please stand to be recognized. Thank you so much. Mahalo.
Further introductions? If not, Madam Clerk.
On pages 2 through 14, Standing Committee Report numbers 1339 to 1422 for adoption.
Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of Standing Committee Reports numbers 1339 to 1422.
Senator DeCoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please note my no vote for House Bill 1182, House Draft 2. Thank you.
So noted. Any further discussion? If not, any objections other than the no vote as stated by Senator Elefante? Then the motion is carried.
On page 15, under Deferred Matters, Advise and Consent.
Before taking the issue up, I just reminded everyone in the caucus that the committee report that was filed on this nomination was in the negative. Well, this is Scott Glenn, right? Well, all motions for the advise and consent though will be in the affirmative, even in the case of Director Sarayasu, who was a negative recommendation. So anyone voting yes on any of the 4 advise and consent matters is voting yes to confirm. Anybody voting no would be in opposition to the confirmation. And with my apologies, if there are no objections from the members, we will be taking advise and consent on consent.
Standing Committee Report Number 1225 on Governor's Message Number 506 for adoption.
Is there any discussion? Senator Inouye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support of GM 506, confirming Mr. Scott Glenn as the Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Mr.
Please
Scott,
proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Glenn has already been serving as the Director of OPSD since December 2022 and has adeptly navigated through the duties and responsibilities of the position. Prior to his appointment to the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, Scott Glenn demonstrated his leadership ability by reinvigorating the Hawaii State Energy Office after the legislature reestablished the agency as part of its efforts to help the state achieve a more resilient, clean energy economy. Before that, Mr. Glenn served as the Director of the Office of Environmental Quality Control, where he was responsible for the modernization of the state's environmental review process. Before coming into public service, Scott Glenn worked in the private sector, where he focused on planning, asset management, and risk analysis, and led or held key roles on multiple multi-million-dollar projects for both public and private sector clients. As director, Mr. Glenn will bring an innovative, data-driven, collaborative, cross-sector approach to today's challenges. Mr. Glenn will be supporting OPSD's mission and statutory activities. Furthermore, Mr. Glenn will be supporting OPSD's mission and statutory activities. He outlines 11 specific activities pursuant to HR Section 225M-2, which includes the following: state comprehensive planning and program coordination via state functional plans, strategic planning of significant issues and formulating alternatives and opportunities, planning coordination among state agencies and the state, county, and federal governments, statewide planning and geographic information system through the gathering of various forms of data and information, land use planning by developing and presenting the state in all boundary change petitions and proceedings before the Land Use Commission, coastal and ocean property policy management, and sea level rise adaptation coordination by administering the Hawaii Coastal Zone Management Program, as we know, CZM. Regional planning and studies to determine carrying capacity and impacts. Regional, national, and international planning by participating in and ensuring consistency to the extent practicable with regional, national, and international planning efforts. Climate adaptation and sustainability planning and coordination. Smart growth and transit-oriented development, as we know, TOD, by acting as the lead agency to coordinate and advance smart growth and TOD planning within the state. Environmental review by performing the duties set forth under HRS Chapter 343. 112 testifiers submitted testimony in support of Mr. Glenn and 7 opposed. Many of his colleagues and distinguished government officials have spoken very highly of Mr. Glenn. For these and many other reasons, Mr. President and colleagues, I ask you for your support to Scott Glenn to his nomination as Director to the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Mahalo, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Mr. President, I rise in opposition to GM 506.
Please proceed.
Colleagues, I have grave concern about this nominee. As a leader, he failed to take care of his staff. As a state energy office, he promised to build energy projects, and he failed to deliver. And most important concern I have is he's failed to be a man of his word. At his confirmation hearing in Water and Land on March 8, 2023, specifically asked him, knowing the deadline on the AES plant, and I approached him and asked him, legislators to request a deadline extension. In the hearing, he said he did. I spoke to my colleagues and my colleague from the energy subject matter, and he said, nope. The GM did not talk to me about an extension legislation. Then again, we moved to, I got reports from AES workers on the GM 506. Did not reach out to them neither. After March 8th, the hearing, he came up to me in the elevator area, the hall area, and he said, oh, Senator, I misspoke in the hearing. And then, as why today I wanted to put on the following record in the evidence of the coal plant that was going to meet the deadline in 2020. He had an opportunity to take action, failed to take action in 2020, 2021, and 2022. He did not make or misspoke to me in the hallway. He lied. I oppose GM 506 strongly because not only in his previous position as the energy chair, environmentally, he failed our communities in environmental, not taking the steps that he needed to do when it came to the windmills and informing the communities of energy that wasn't so clean and wasn't so firm. And when they was trying to build on Camp Palihua, windmills up in Camp Palihua, and we got wind of it, pardon my joke, and we stopped it. The community got together and stopped it. He told me when I was in the energy, when Senator Kaikahele was there, in the committee, when I first got here, no more windmills. Soon after that, the reason why I remember this, I don't even write them down, because I take it seriously when somebody like to use the word mislead. Colleagues, when I spoke yesterday from my heart, I was truly troubled in this chamber because I was taught, and I was taught right by leadership of this body, that all we have is our word. So when we give each other our word here, we're family. And what had happened, he tried to do, or tried to convince, or opportunities to have windmills in Camp Palihua, offshore windmills in my community, both of them. When he said in the hearing, he gave me his word, no more windmills. Try to help the community of Kahuku on the setbacks, no cooperation. You have to have a backbone to lead. And he did not. He failed. And this is what the person that we're going to put forward of this body leading our department. I urge my colleagues to vote with me in opposition to Scotts Glen GM 506. Thank you, Senate President and colleagues. God bless.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I rise in opposition to this nominee.
Please proceed.
Mr. President and colleagues, the state made a grave mistake by passing a law in the summer of 2020 to shut down Oahu's coal plant, largely based on assurances by the State Energy Office that there would be plenty of solar projects coming online. Its closure 2 years later, which was last September, coupled with rising oil prices, have left residents paying for that mistake. Today, energy bills are 25% higher than a year ago. I didn't watch the Water and Land confirmation hearing on March 8th because I was preparing for my own confirmation hearing for nominees to the Department of Law Enforcement as well as the Department of Defense. As I headed to that hearing, Mr. Glenn stopped me near the rail. He looked frazzled, and he wanted to alert me that he just made a misstatement to the committee about meeting with me on the coal plant closure. I agreed. We never discussed options prior to that coal plant being shut down. Mr. Glenn went on to convey to the senator from EVA that he had misled the committee as well and admitted to never conveying a plan. Instead of accepting his mistake, Mr. Glenn tried to cover it up. On March 18th, he sent a letter to the Waterland Chair claiming that he met with me in the Powering Past Coal Task Force meetings that began in 2021. This was a group of 20 people zooming in online. There was no one-on-one meeting to, again, talk about any kind of mitigation plans for the shutdown of the coal plant when our renewable energy projects were obviously not going to come online soon enough. Members, we all make mistakes. That is forgivable. Trying to cover it up is not. I encourage you to vote no on this nominee.
Thank you. Further discussion.
Mr. President,
Senator Moriwaki.
I rise in opposition to the recommendation.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We vote today on whether the nominee can lead the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. I cannot vote yes on Scott Glenn. I've known Scott, appreciate his work in the OEQC, updating the environmental impact statement rules, and at the State Energy Office. However, effective leadership is more than working with stakeholders to achieve initiatives. Leadership also requires inspiring and bringing employees along, including those who may disagree and take issue with our actions. All this to achieve the joint mission of the office. I've heard very serious concerns from OPSD employees. They feel unsupported in their work. Subject matter experts with their opinions disregarded. Some have already left. Others say they will leave if Scott is confirmed. As Labor Committee Chair, I know that the state faces a significant workforce shortage. We cannot afford to lose qualified staff, and in particular, in this very important office that plans for our future. We need leaders who can inspire and support employees to change government to make sure we serve the public. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support.
Please proceed.
You know, the descriptions I've heard of Mr. Glenn are ones that I just don't even recognize the individual that I thought I knew a little bit. Him and his wife live in the building I live in down in Chinatown. And my experience with him has always been he's very straightforward, almost to the point of, I mean, sometimes he tells you things you don't want to hear because he thinks it's the truth, and sometimes we don't always want to hear exactly what the situation is. But he understands very clearly what's going to happen to the state of Hawaii as global warming progresses, and he's a capable enough person that he'll know he'll make great contributions in helping the state deal with the many things that we're going to have to deal with as global warming gets worse. I think he'll do a great job in this position, and I hope that my colleagues will agree with me. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion. If not, Madam Clerk, instead of asking for
Mr. President.
unanimous, Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition of this nominee.
Please proceed.
My concerns with the nominee have to do with his past performance, which lacked outcomes in his role as the Chief Energy Officer and issues that have surfaced in his role as Director of Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Statute 196-71 established the Energy Office to do this. Provide analysis and planning to actively develop and inform policies to achieve energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy resiliency, and clean transportation goals with the legislature, Public Utilities Commission, state agencies, and other relevant stakeholders. Number 2, lead efforts to incorporate, and 3, provide energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy resiliency, and clean transportation to reduce costs and achieve clean energy goals across all public facilities. Number 4, engage the private sector to help lead efforts to achieve renewable energy and clean transportation goals through the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. He did not do these things. We are all suffering from the high cost of living, especially high cost of energy. The nominee was in charge of the Energy Office and should have played a significant role in planning to keep our cost of energy down. He had a very significant voice in shutting down the lowest cost of energy for Oahu. And during the session of 2020, he did not talk to our subject matter chair, even though he lied during his confirmation hearing, saying that he did. His lie was that he informed us, this body, that the retirement of the coal plant was going to increase the cost significantly. He also was informed that the solar farms forecasted to make up for the loss of 20% of Oahu's energy would be delayed, but did not recommend to this body that we hold off on that legislation or make a contingency plan. He had full opportunity to come back to the legislators in 2021 and 2022 before the shutdown of the coal plant to let us know of the further delays in the solar projects and could have put in a bill to mitigate this issue, but nothing was done. And for this reason, Mr. President, I cannot support this nominee.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Rhodes?
Mr. President, can we just have a short recess?
No objections from the members? Short
Thank you.
recess? Will the Senate please come back into order? I was about to say, with the diverse points of view expressed, Madam Clerk, instead of asking for unanimous consent, I'm going to ask you to please call the roll. Again, a yes vote is to confirm, a no vote is against confirmation.
On Governor's Message 506, Senator Aquino. Senator Awa. No. Senator Chang.
Nay.
Senator DeCoit.
No.
Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Elefante.
Yes.
Senator Favela. No. Senator Fukunaga. Senator Gabbard. Senator Ihara.
Aye.
Senator Inoue.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha. Senator Keith Agaran. Senator Keoho Kalole. Senator Kidani. Senator Kim. Senator Lee. Senator McKelvey. Senator Moriwaki.
No.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Richards. Senator San Buenaventura.
Excused?
Senator Shimabukuro. Senator Wakai. Mr. President,
Aye.
12 ayes, 12 noes.
The nominee for Governor's Message 506 fails to be confirmed. The clerk is directed to file Standing Committee Report number 1225. Madam Clerk,
Continuing on page 15, advise and consent.
if there are no objections from the members, we'll be taking advice and consent. On consent,
Standing Committee Report number 1336 on Governor's Message number 505, Chris Sadayasu, gubernatorial nominee, as the Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism for adoption.
Members, pursuant to Senate Rule 37, the final question on nominations made by the governor must be stated in the affirmative. This is when I should have said what I said earlier. So again, a yes vote is to confirm, a no vote is against confirmation. The standing committee report reflecting the committee action has already been filed. Senator Kanuha.
I move to file Standing Committee Report number 1336.
Senator Richards.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This is the standing committee report. I was just a little quick. So this is, again, the vote is just acknowledging that the committee recommended against, and it's not a reflection of how you will vote. After we take this vote, we will be voting on the nominee. Any objections to the motion to file the report as submitted? Hearing no objections, so ordered. Next, Madam Clerk, is Senator Kanuha again.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate advise and consent to the nomination of Chris Sadiasu as Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Senator Richards.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to GM 505.
Please proceed.
As the chair of your Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, I took my responsibility in vetting the GM nomination very seriously. I want to make sure that the next director of the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism is ready for the task and can help the department, its division, and attached agencies succeed in their missions. I did not come to my recommendation to not advise and consent lightly. I'm a fan and a supporter of our current governor, and I want to support the administration. And the best way I can do this is to be honest. To be honest and to make my recommendations based on the information in front of me and based on the performance we have seen so far. It was my task and the task of the EET committee members to vet this nominee. These are the concerns shared by the majority of the EET committee members as well. Concerns over his understanding of the Sunshine Law. Serious concerns over his ability to manage all of the staff under his jurisdiction at DBED and the attached agencies. His resume mentions that he previously supervised 4 employees. DBED and its attached agencies has 330 employees. His inexperience in managing and communicating with staff became apparent during our WAM briefings. It was clear to committee members that there was a lack of communication, which led to the nominee making announcements about pending actions before his attached agencies was notified. A director cannot blindside staff like that. A director has to have a clear communication plan. They need to know how to get updates and reports from their employees and give clear instructions and deadlines. A healthy communication plan fosters a productive and healthy work environment. Another point that became evident during the WAM briefings was a lack of familiarity with his own department's budget. And when questioned by the chair of WAM on certain line items, he was willing just to let them be taken out instead of backing up the planned budget put together. He didn't take ownership of his department's budget. And by not doing so, he also failed to back up his staff. He did not have a lot of he had a lot of supportive testimony, but most was boilerplate, where they were just relisting items from his resume without any actual examples of the leadership accomplishments of community involvement. As members of the Senate, we must take responsibility to advise and consent seriously. This is the business of the state. People's livelihoods depend on this. It's not about who we like or who we are friends with. The question is, can the person do the lead and do the job well? Clearly, he cannot. all of us have an obligation to our constituents to confirm department heads that will operate our departments effectively and efficiently. Mr. President, this is not a personal decision for me. This vote is about process and the ability to get the job done. I don't feel Mr. Sadayasu has the capacity to do what is being asked of him at this time. I ask for you to support the decision made by your Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism to not advise and consent on this nominee. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Fukunaga.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak in support of Governor's Message 505, nominating Chris Sadayasu as Director of Department of Business and Economic Development.
Please proceed.
During the past 20-plus years, more than almost any other department within state cabinet, Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism has been the product of multiple changes that the state legislature and the executive branch have agreed upon. Its policies and procedures have been driven by legislative priorities to diversify Hawaii's economy while determining how to strike the appropriate balance between Hawaii's traditional reliance on tourism, military spending, and construction against future-oriented industries that build upon local residents' creative strengths. Where conditions have fallen short, as was recently pointed out in the Star Advertiser's coverage of the leaking roof and structural issues associated with the convention center, or with Aloha Stadium's rust problems, I believe that the legislature is just as responsible as our other executive agencies for delayed corrective action. As such, Chris Sadayasu's long-term experience within a variety of DBED agencies and in county government gives him a unique perspective that few other candidates have. The fact that he is well respected within the department and among those who interact with the department demonstrates his strengths of being hardworking, analytical, and demanding, as well as being fair and inclusive. I therefore urge my colleagues to join in confirming Mr. Sadayasu as Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Mr. President, I rise in opposition to nominee
Please proceed.
Chris Sadayasu, Governor's Message 505. Mr. President, Chris Sadayasu appeared before several WAM and EET hearings. These hearings are the opportunity for Mr. Sadayasu to demonstrate his ability to lead, to present new ideas and innovative and display strong decision-making skills. But the nominee missed the mark. He appeared before the committee unprepared. Mr. President, like any sports team, the DBED needs a head coach. Someone who will show strong understanding of his fundamental, someone who will be visionary, skills to advance the strategies. But what Mr. Sadayasu has shown us, his experience that we all talk about in a different department was all mid-level management. Never took a lead role in those positions. Even in HTA, he was behind the scenes. I oppose this nominee and wish my colleagues would support me in not recommending and opposing GM 505. Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. God bless and aloha.
Thank you. Further discussion? I get Senator Kim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, it does not give me any pleasure to stand up and explain my vote in opposition. But we have been accused that our votes are political rather than based on job performance. So as a member of the EET committee, my vote was and is based on the nominee's resume of his experience and his job performance before the Ways and Means Committee, budget briefings, and his performance at the confirmation hearing. Here are the specifics. The DBED director's job description is to manage the development and implementation of economic change through retention, expansion, attraction of commerce and light industry, and the creation of incentive zone programs, business growth, and expansion. The nominee's resume lacks experience in these areas and does not exhibit the skills needed to manage and oversee a department of 6 divisions and 10 attached agencies. He has never managed more than 5 employees throughout his whole work history. This lack of management skills and collaboration showed itself when he, on January 25th, during the budget briefing, announced, unrelated to the day's agenda, that he was taking over the USA Marketing RFP and not the Destination RFP, which I thought was baseless since it was not consistent with his reasoning. I quote the nominee: "The director's office is going to take on the USA Marketing RFP, and we're going to issue it ourselves. We'll take it on and we'll manage it. I haven't even informed them, HTA, that I'm going to inform the board tomorrow," unquote. It is troubling that he did not collaborate or inform HTA before making this announcement publicly that he, as the HOA, was taking over just half of the RFP. Then the next day, when he met with HTA, he changed his mind. Mr. President, a thoughtful, experienced director would not have jumped the gun and be so erratic. Further, during the Ways and Means budget briefings, the nominee was not prepared. He did not display the ability to identify and prioritize DBED's budget, ads of hundreds of thousands of dollars. He did not exhibit fiscal restraint and approved all 60 new ads that was asked for. He did not reject any one of them. Of the 60 new ads, 50 were identified by him as the #1 priority, while 9 were #2 and just 1 as #3. And during that budget briefing, several DBED division heads responded that they would not be pursuing some of the new asks and did not need them, which reflected that the director's lack of vetting his division budget requests. Finally, on the DBED's webpage, about the director states, "Sadayasu has over 17 years of experience as an expert in economic development in DBED's various attached agencies, including HTA." Mr. President, my research, along with reviewing all of the HTA's board meeting minutes, as well as the Standing Marketing Committee minutes during his time at HTA and other attached agencies, the record does not reach the level of expert in economic development. At HTA, he was a mid-level manager with no decision-making responsibilities. These minutes also show that in 2016, his first year, he was at DBED, he was absent from 7 out of 11 regular board meetings. In 2018, absent from 8 of 12 regular board meetings. And the same year, 2018, absent from 4 out of 9 standing marketing committee meetings. In 2020, absent from 8 of the 9 regular board meetings, and the same year, 2020, absent from 7 out of the 8 standing marketing committee meetings. In 2021, absent from all regular board meetings and all marketing committee meetings until August 2021 when he left HTA. In the meetings he did attend, he did not have any role in the discussions of his assigned areas of marketing or sports. So this is far from being an expert as described under DBED's webpage. Mr. President, Mr. Sadayasu is an enthusiastic young man and deserves a chance. But my research and all that I've seen, read, and heard, he is not ready to lead one of the most important departments in the state during this time of economic uncertainty. Therefore, Mr. President, I cannot support Governor's Message 505. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, again, we will call for the roll. A vote of aye or yes will be for confirmation. A vote of no will be in opposition to the confirmation.
This is on Governor's Message 505. Senator Aquino. Senator Awa.
No.
Senator Chang.
Reservations.
Senator DeCoit. Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Elefante.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
No.
Senator Fukunaga. Senator Gabbard. Senator Ihara.
Aye.
Senator Inoue. Senator Kanuha. Senator Keith Agaran. Senator Keoho Kalole. Senator Kidani. Senator Kim. Senator Lee. Senator McKelvey.
Could you repeat the vote, please, Senator Lee? No.
Senator McKelvey. Senator Moriwaki.
No.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Richards. Senator San Buenaventura.
Excused?
Senator Shimabukuro. Senator Wakai.
Excused?
Mr. President,
No.
8 ayes, 15 noes.
Chris Sarayasu fails to be confirmed. Madam Clerk?
Standing Committee Report Number 1337 on Governor's Message Number 520, Keith Regan, gubernatorial nominee as Comptroller for the Department of Accounting and General Services, for adoption.
Is there any discussion, Senator McKelvey?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of confirming Keith Regan for Comptroller of the Department of Accounting and General Services.
Please proceed.
During the hearing for the deputy, we brought up several issues. Mr. President, your Committee on Government Operations, we went ahead and put the nominee through a grilling process. As I like to say, he was like a Redondo dog on a hibachi at a UH game. We saw during the WAM info briefings, there was a lot of questions raised about the nominee and his grasp of the area and his relationship with the subject matters. I met with him and explained to him of these areas, and I also talked to him about the fact that you are the acting comptroller now. It's time to walk and do things and not discuss it. We brought up issues during the hearing of the deputy, Mr. President, and during his hearing, he went ahead and he described the fixes to which we were seeking, like deficiencies in paying out vouchers for Department of Health and Human Services that go to our nonprofits to take care of our needy community. He came forward with a fix for these issues. He's found creative ways to fill other vacancies that are much needed and develop a recruitment pipeline using our colleges, our high schools, and even appearing himself personally at job fairs which DAGS has been holding. He's addressing the mold situation at DOE and facilities on Hawai'i Island and didn't shrink away from the criticism that came up about this situation during the committee hearing. Mr. Regan has a detailed, intricate knowledge of all of the divisions in DAGS, from Public Works all the way to Central Services, and many of them have formally and informally vouched for his involvement and team-building spirit for this agency. He has created a DAGS in Your District bulletin to update us lawmakers on specific DAG-related projects, incidents, and issues, as well as response plans to help us better communicate projects to our constituents. He has done a deep dive with the support of administrators like Public Works on how we can address the big issues in project delivery that are being overlooked. He has encouraged current measures and initiatives. He has identified the need for provided immediate office space and support for the school's facility authority so they can grow into what we envision them to be. He's met with your committee chair and given us detailed metric reports and updates on the different divisions in DAGS, and he's even identified how we can truly introduce new policies next year to address what is the slowdown in the construction delivery process that goes far beyond procurement. He has worked with Risk Assessment Division on emulating creative solutions that other states have done to adjust the spiraling cost of insurance for our state facilities. And finally, he has implemented the JOC program in DAGS and looks to expand it to the neighbor island, a program that in visiting all of our schools in my district, the principals and teachers are happy to finally see jobs being done and permitting being bundled. We started the relationship with Mr. Regan. We challenged him, and he has grown and he has delivered. He has worked with your office on addressing issues within the central campus itself. And so through this exact process, Mr. President, I think he's responded well. He has the support and camaraderie of his agency. He knows his program areas, and he's willing to work hard for the people of Hawaii. And for that, I'd like to go ahead and ask your support for the Advise and consent for Mr. Regan as the comptroller.
Thank you. 1 second, Senator Favela. Given the two ringtones during the comments from Senator McKelvey, I'd like to remind those of you in the gallery to silence or turn off your cell phones. We still have several items on the agenda, so we're not going to be leaving this chamber anytime soon. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Tangled in the wire.
You got the newfangled thing. You got to get it to work right. You're talking too much, maybe.
Trying my best, trying my best. Senate President, I rise in strong support
Please proceed.
for this nominee for GM 520, Keith Reagan, as a DAG's comptroller. Keith Reagan is one of the leading examples of a qualified candidate. He leads the State Department. He has constantly shown the Senate his leadership through his preparation. Prior to his meeting with me, we had discussed and has knowledge of the functions of his department. I had a chance to meet with Keith Reagan prior to his nomination, and we easily came to an agreement about possibly creating a state permitting office. Also, his leadership role in and at the County of Maui, HTA, and DCCA as a front row player, not a backseat driver, and prove his qualification and have no doubt that this nominee, Keith Reagan, will be able to lead the department successfully. I ask my colleagues to please support GM 520, Keith Reagan. Mahalo, and God bless.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Wakai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this nominee.
Please proceed.
Keith Reagan is aspiring to be the state's comptroller, and he has proven himself to be a state collaborator. He comes to us with 16 years of government experience, first in Maui County and more recently with the Hawaii Tourism Authority. During his tenure at HTA, I worked closely with Mr. Reagan, who was a chief administrative officer. Whenever I asked for data or documents, he was always forthcoming and always responsive. We didn't always agree on tourism policy, but we always interacted respectfully. DAGS faces significant vacancies, a substantial deferred maintenance backlog, and reducing the state's dependency on leased office space. Over the past few years, I've seen improvements, or past few months, I should say, I've seen improvements to modernize operational efficiency, innovative approaches to overcoming these lingering challenges, and supporting his team through improved communication and personal development growth opportunities. Mr. Reagan has the ability to bring people together to overcome challenges that may seem insurmountable at first. Maintaining the state's infrastructure is vitally important. It's not super exciting, but Mr. Reagan provides a sense of excitement that and an expectation that we will see much better outcomes in the years ahead. I encourage all of you to support this exemplary collaborator to be our next comptroller.
Well, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
24 ayes.
Thank you. Keith Reagan has been confirmed as the comptroller for the Department of Accounting and General Services. Senator McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I be permitted a late introduction?
Please proceed.
I'd like to go ahead and have our new comptroller, Mr. Keith Reagan, stand up to be recognized. He is joined today.
We'll clap for him first.
He's joined by his wife, Linda Rocky Reagan, if you could stand too. Son Riley. Son Riley Reagan, his in-laws Ann and Fred Araki, his uncle George Shimada, as well as friends and colleagues from the Department of Accounting and General Services. Mr. President, I would like to enter all of their names into the journal. And could you please stand one more time?
Madam Clerk.
Standing Committee Report number 1338 on Governor's Message number 524, Kali Watson, gubernatorial nominee as the chairperson of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, for adoption.
Is there any discussion? Senator Shimabukuro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support. Mr. President, your committee believes that Mr. Watson's extensive project development and legal background, combined with his lifelong service on behalf of Native Hawaiian housing and cultural issues, qualifies him to serve as chairperson of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Your committee finds that Mr. Watson is an established and sophisticated project developer with a proven track record of success, and that his subject matter expertise and fluency in the complex field of housing development, which encompasses bond financing, housing tax credits, project management, and land use and zoning laws, will allow him to immediately take the helm and begin putting plans into action for the benefit of Native Hawaiian people. Your committee finds that one of the chief concerns for many who testified was the need to quickly and efficiently encumber the $600 million appropriated by the legislature through Act 279, Session Laws of 2022, before the funds lapse. And your committee appreciates Mr. Watson's expressed intent to aggressively pursue the 20 projects identified in the strategic plan approved by the Hawaiian Homelands Commission. Members, we received some recent concerns from the Ahupua'o Nanakuli homestead. Mr. Watson will be reaching out to this important group of beneficiaries to discuss their concerns. Mr. President, your committee, after full consideration of the background, experience, and qualifications of the nominee, has found him to be qualified for the position to which nominated and recommends the Senate advise and consent to his nomination. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senate President. I rise in opposition of GM 524.
Please proceed.
Beneficiaries, constituents, and our Hawaiian community asked me to share my deepest concerns about GM 524. 19 years of dealing with DHHL and his nonprofit. He was asked over 10 times at his confirmation hearing about his many conflicts and interests. Just imagine 3 out of the 5 of my colleagues in the Hawaiian Committee is attorneys. None of them could get a clear answer about how he was to avoid his many conflict of interests. One of my colleagues even asked him, why did you send in your answers to the committee questionnaire on your Hawaiian Community Development Board, HCDB letterhead? The GM 524 did not and could not see that there was a problem with his using HCDB letterhead. Most ethical people will see that these and there should be a clear separation. But no, this GM said he would encourage his nonprofit to stay engaged with DHHL. My colleagues, we already know these delinquent lease rent payments over $130,000, cause of hazardous material costing over $2 million to clean up. On his license on the parcel of Kalailoa, and conflict upon conflict, interest, and blindness. What disturbs me in the committee, that he said his son on one of the properties off in Maili, he pays him $4,500 a month to clean that property. I urge you colleagues, go check out the property. No maintenance. So these are the things, because of his attorney and his intelligence and engagement since he had left DHHL, he knows how to work the system. And Kali been working the system for a long, long time. I have opposition to this man for decades. Mililani Trask testified in favor of this man. Why? Geothermal on Hawaiian homelands, family and friends. Patty Kahanamoku Turuya wants to be back a commissioner. These are the things you gotta look on who came. Crab from Molokai, the largest contaminator on Molokai, came. Not only came, but also threatened my staff member. These are the people that he deals with. These are the people that's willing to go against their Hawaiian community to get what they special interest conflicts that he has. What disturbs me is what Crab told my staff, and I don't need this for that. They was outside there supporting the opposition of Kali Watson's nomination. This guy Crab comes up to my staff, talking story, then he realized that he works for me. This is what he told my staff. Well, back in the day, politicians would get assassinated. That's us. And I know I don't call myself a politician, I'm an elected official. But I wasn't afraid for myself, colleagues. I was afraid for my staff and my fellow colleagues. But this is the kind of people thinking that this is the kind of decade we're living in. This is not 1976. We have to stop the insanity and stop recycling people that's not pono for our people to go forward and prosper. I ask you colleagues in this chamber, do the right thing and vote no on this nominee. Thank you, God bless, and aloha.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes for Senators Favela and Awa. I'm sorry, Senator Kidani, did you have reservations? Getting too old to turn my neck all the way to the right. Reservations for Senator Kidani, any other reservations? Just a double check. And no votes for Senators Favela and Awa.
21 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. Kali Watson has been confirmed as the chairperson of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We were going to ask you to clap loudly after Senator Shimabukuro does the official introduction. Senator Shimabukuro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm so pleased to announce and to introduce our new chair of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, Mr. Kali Watson. Please rise to be recognized. Mr. Watson is joined by his wife, Judith Pavey, his executive assistant, Richard Hoke, and he's got supporters, friends, and colleagues from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Could you all please stand to be recognized? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Shimabukuro. Madam Clerk.
On page 16, third reading.
If there are no objections from the members, we will be taking third reading on consent.
Third reading of House Bill 141, Senate Draft 1, relating to financial disclosures.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
24 ayes.
Thank you. HB 141 SD1 passes third reading.
Third reading of House Bill 349, Senate Draft 1, relating to children.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
24 ayes.
Thank you. HB 349 SD1 passes third reading.
Third reading of House Bill 463, Senate Draft 1, relating to elections.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
24 ayes.
Thank you. HB 463 SD1 passes third reading.
Third reading of House Bill 264, Senate Draft 1, relating to crimes against sports officials.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
23 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 264 SD1 passes third reading.
Referrals
Mr.
and
President?
re-referrals.
Senator Keith Agaran.
Have a short recess.
No objections from the members. Short recess. Will the Senate please come back into order before getting to the next item for Mr. Regan and Mr. Watson? I think your committee chair has extended an invitation for you to come to the floor to take a picture after we adjourn, which is going to be in about 2 minutes. Madam Clerk.
We're on referrals and re-referrals.
Referrals and re-referrals are made in accordance with the order of the day and the supplemental orders of the day that may be filed later today.
No further business, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements today? If not, having said nothing because I'm not supposed to during the proceedings, I just want to thank all of the members. I know a couple of weeks ago I told you to take your responsibility for advise and consent seriously. That is something that you have done. In my time here, advise and consent on nominees have always been challenging because, well, we line up often on ideology. When we look at individuals and how they perform, we come to different conclusions, and I often find myself with a different opinion from someone who I consider a very close friend. But each of you has voted in the way that you seem or you've deemed to be appropriate. And by the arguments made for or against, that the homework that you have put in before you arrived at a decision has been incredible, and the work that you will continue to do as we go through the advise and consent process, I expect you to change in no way as we get to the end of the session and continue to work in the hard way that you do and hold all of the nominees accountable to answer the questions, to carry themselves well in front of the committees, and I all wish you a great long weekend for the hard work that you have all put in. Senator Wakai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, March 28th.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. If there are no objections from the members, we will stand adjourned until 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday after the wonderful Kuhio Day holiday on Monday.